What's up guys, Brendan Arestia here, and they call me the One Pan Man. The reason they call me the One Pan Man is because I use, you guessed it, just one pan for absolutely everything I cook. And if you want to learn how to make amazing, delicious, and quick meals using just one pan, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome cooking videos like this. And today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make my favorite cast iron meal, and the one that got me hooked on using just one pan, and specifically the cast iron pan, and that is the cast iron pizza. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so in order to make the most delicious cast iron pizza that you've ever tasted, and if you've never tasted cast iron pizza, then this is going to be the most delicious pizza you've ever tasted, we first have to start with the dough. And this is going to be a very simple dough recipe, and this recipe is going to be just for one 12-inch pizza. If you want to multiply the quantities, you can multiply it as many times as you want. I'm doing it one single pizza just to make it simple for you guys. Very simple ingredients. This is going to turn out delicious. You're going to make it for all your friends and family. And if you know somebody that doesn't love pizza, then you should unfriend them, because there's probably something wrong with them, because pizza is the one thing that everybody has to love, is the one thing that kind of brings everybody together. And if somebody doesn't come together because of pizza, then we got to get rid of them. Let's start with the recipe. We're going to be starting with 157 grams of flour. So I already have my flour weighed out and in the bowl. Next, we're going to throw in the yeast, and we have about half a gram of yeast here. We're going to throw this in there. Then here we have about 5 grams of salt. We're going to throw that bad boy in there. And here we have about 111 grams of water. Now we're going to throw that in there nice and easy. Now, just because I'm cheap and I don't have fancy mixing equipment, we're going to mix this by hand, and that's perfectly fine. And you're going to see it's going to turn out absolutely delicious. So we're going to get our mixture in here, and then we're just going to mix it in. And once everything seems to be somewhat mixed in, we're going to grab a little bit of flour, and we're going to sprinkle our work surface, just so that the dough doesn't stick. We're going to get our dough mixed, throw it on here, and now we're going to start working it, making sure we are mixing everything in. It might feel a little bit sticky, and that is perfectly fine. That's exactly how we want it. We're just going to do this for a couple minutes, make sure everything is well mixed in. And it's gonna be sticky, but you're just gonna have to deal with it. It's part of the process. You want delicious pizza, you're gonna have to deal with sticky dough. You wanna stretch it out, fold it back, stretch it out, fold it back. Now this is an easy, delicious pizza that anybody can make at home with no fancy equipment. You're gonna see a lot of videos on YouTube, people making these awesome looking pizzas, but you need some real fancy equipment. Here at One Pan Man, we use just one pan. Other than that, we're gonna use our hands, a little elbow grease, and a cutting board every now and then. So we're just gonna try to form a little ball out of it and cover it for about 15 minutes, right? So we're gonna set the timer, 15 minutes, and we're gonna come back. All right, so now we're gonna get a little bit of olive oil cooking spray. A little rub. We're gonna get a clean bowl, spray it, rub it in the real good. Take this off, and there's our dough. Now, having let it sit there for 15 minutes should allow it to be a little less sticky. So we're gonna grab it, and now we're gonna just sculpt it into a nice smooth ball. As you can see, it's a lot less sticky than it was earlier. Now we're gonna grab it, we're gonna fold it into itself and pinch it, fold it, pinch, keep folding, keep folding. There we have our nice smooth dough. And what we're gonna do is the bottom, you want to make sure it is well closed, so we're just gonna pinch the bottom, and we're gonna get our nice smooth ball here and just place it inside of this bowl, just like so. Now we're gonna get a bit of saran wrap, our bowl, just like that, with our dough. Now we're just gonna leave it here and let it rest for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And what it's gonna do, you're gonna notice that the dough is gonna increase in size approximately double. And after those 2 hours, we're gonna get our dough just like this in the bowl and put it in the fridge for at least 24 hours, right? And in those 24 hours, we're just gonna let the dough ferment and start building flavor. Now, you could use it right after 24 hours, but the longer you use it, the more flavor will develop. So we're gonna leave this 24 hours, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna make our delicious cast iron pizza, so stick around. All right guys, so at least 24 hours have gone by and our dough has been in the fridge fermenting and finishing its taste development process. Now, my dough in particular has been in the fridge for about 3-4 days, mainly because I haven't had time to finish this video off. So like I told you before, the longer you leave it, the more flavor that dough is going to develop. And now we're just going to pull it out of the fridge and let it come to room temperature. This might take about 10 to 15 minutes, but meanwhile, we're going to be doing two very important steps. One of them being preheating our oven to at least 500 degrees, and then we're going to butter up our pan. You can use essentially any non-stick oil, spray, or anything you want to put on your cast iron pan. The idea is we don't want our dough to stick to the pan, and therefore we got to coat it with something non-stick. I personally like butter just because butter's delicious and makes everything taste better. And then the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna prepare our sauce. And now for the sauce, there's a few options we can do. One, you can buy a store-bought sauce, pre-made. This is perfectly fine if you're on a crunch and tight for time. Option number two is buying pre-peeled tomatoes in a can and then either putting them in a blender or crushing them yourself. We're gonna add a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of basil, mix it up, and there's your sauce. And option number three is getting fresh tomatoes and, well, that's the oven, is getting fresh tomatoes and essentially doing it from scratch. But because this is a quick and simple video, and I want to teach you guys how to do this without too much fuzz, without even having to think about it too much, we're gonna use store-bought sauce. And the sauce I used it about last week, so it's in the fridge right now, and it's essentially just your good old plain pizza sauce that comes in a can. And this still will make a delicious pizza. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our butter-flavored non-stick spray. We're just gonna put a nice coating on that, make sure you get the edges. Now, we're gonna get our dough. It's come up to room temperature and it's been sitting in the fridge for at least 24 hours. And we're just gonna flip it upside down. And now just let it slowly come off. There you go. And there's our dough. Now this is where the magic happens. Now we're gonna start pushing from the middle out, right? Because you don't want a super puffy middle. You basically want just an even dough throughout the whole pizza. Just take your time, make sure not to rip the dough, just push it to the edges. So now we're going to get our sauce. Now you don't want to put too much sauce because you don't want to water this pizza down too much, so just a little bit of sauce is fine. All right, put some in the middle and you start spreading it out. Like I said, this is store-bought pizza sauce, already made, comes in a can. Buy organic if you can. And now what we want to do is we want to go all the way to the edges because that's what's going to give us the really crispy crust. That's what a nice sauced dough looks like. And now the final step, some cheap, regular, good old mozzarella. There's a low moisture, part skim. This is fine. Like I said, this isn't a restaurant, but this is going to be the most delicious homemade pizza you've ever eaten. And now this is where we got to be generous, right? You don't want to skimp on the cheese. And the most important part is the edges. We want to get cheese all around the edges because this is a pan pizza and I am the one pan man. Made a mess in the kitchen, but it's all good in the name of pizza. And voila. There's our pizza ready to go in the oven and ready to take the final step of this very long marathon that we've been on in order to make the most delicious homemade cast iron pizza. Now there isn't really a rule of thumb of how long the pizza should be in the oven, but I would say at least 5 to 8 minutes depending how hot your oven gets. You want to make sure your crust gets nice and crispy and the cheese gets that little burnt crust on top, and that's how we make sure we have the most delicious cast iron pizza we can make. Homemade, cheap, quick, and delicious. The most important part. Now, all we gotta do is wait. All right, guys, what I have to present to you is quite possibly the Mona Lisa of homemade pizzas. Watch this. Oh yeah, look at this. Now that is a work of art, my friends. Now let's eat. All right, so now we can safely turn off our oven and just let our pizza rest for a couple minutes and let it cool down. As you can see, we have those perfect little burnt edges. The cheese is nice and crunchy and burnt on top. And I mean, this is as good as it gets, folks. I don't know what else to tell you. I've made it easy, simple, quick for you guys, cheap ingredients. What more can you ask for? This is delicious pizza made at home. And before we cut into it, we got to take a thumbnail picture. So, okay, so now we're gonna grab a thin knife and we're just gonna start going around the edges. Make sure we get all that crispiness. You don't want to leave any of that on the pan, because that's what takes this pizza from a possible 7 all the way to I would say easily 12 in a scale of 1 to 10. And now we are going to transfer it onto our cutting board. Put the knife under, and it should just slide right off. Just like that, our cast iron pizza is done. And now, just because we don't have a traditional pizza cutting wheel, we're going to use a regular knife, and we're going to make the perfect cuts on our perfect pizza, just like this. You can hear that crunchiness on the crust. Voila. All right, guys, we made our dough. We let it rest. We waited 24 hours. We put our sauce, we put our cheese, we let it bake in the oven, and now we get to try this work of art that we've created. And I am going to take the first bite, and I will let you know how good this pizza is. I mean, just look at the anatomy of this pizza. You got your perfect thin crust, right? We're not super thick there. It's nice and crispy on the edges, and that cheese is just perfectly burnt. And that's gonna make for one delicious homemade cast iron pizza. And now for the moment of truth, the bite that's gonna say it all. It always tastes better than I imagined, or that I remember the last time. So here, guys, I encourage you to go ahead and make this pizza. It's the reason I make these videos. These are quick, simple, easy, and delicious recipes that you can make at home with not too much fuzz. You can make it for your family, you can make it for yourself, you can make it for your friends. And so I encourage you to do so. And then once you make it, I want you to put in the comment section below what you thought of this recipe and what other cast iron dish you might want me to make in the next video. So stick around, guys. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.